Niswander, and welcome to the Nowman Show. What's happening now? This is a panel discussion, and we're going to go around the table and have each person introduce themselves, and then we're going to start a discussion about literally what's happening now and what we're doing and why we need to do this and what solutions, and well, you know, living in the moment, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start now at the table with Ryan. Ryan, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ryan Skolnick. I'm currently serving primarily as an elected assembly delegate to the state Democratic Party in California. I'm majorly focusing on the issue of healthcare. I'm a volunteer with the Healthy California campaign. I'm working as well on the drafting committee of Whole Washington, which is the Washington state program to do single-payer healthcare. And I've gotten a lot into the weeds of policy and stuff, so that's been my focus, especially now that we have bills both here in California and over in DC that we need to get done.
And you're currently a student at Moore Park?
Yeah, I currently study political science at Moore Park College, pretty good school. And otherwise, I work as a speech and debate coach, so something that's served me very well throughout politics, so here I am.
Excellent, excellent. Melissa?
Hi, my name is Melissa. Where do I look? Should I talk to you?
you can talk to me or talk to the camera or whatever you like.
So my name is Melissa Michelson, and I was a Bernie Sanders delegate. I went to the DNC with my compatriots, 1,900 of us. And then when I came back, I decided, you know, let's see what's going on here. I exited, and I thought, you know, there's no point in this Democratic Party thing, and then I was gone. But then I re-entered because I thought there was this opportunity, like Ryan, to become a delegate to the state party. So instead of a national delegate, I became a state delegate as well. I wasn't elected, but I'm an appointee of Kevin DeLeon. And so that's where I'm there. And so there are a lot of us that have entered the Democratic Party, and we're playing that game, whatever that is. And then at the same time, I thought, okay, I'm going to take it a step further, and I founded the the Feel the Burn Democratic Club of Los Angeles County. And I thought, you know, if we're going to be involved as Democrats, we might as well do the whole thing, but in our way. And so it's definitely all Bernie Sanders platform driven, and we're activists, and we're doing everything that we would normally do with, just under the auspices of the Democratic Party. And so that's what I've been involved in the recent past, and it takes up a good chunk of my time. But on the side, I'm also a local activist in my neighborhood. Right now we're fighting development of private development. They want to chop down 269 trees, mature trees 80 to 100 years old, yes. You know, and the city council and all that kind of stuff. So maybe I'll get into it later, but that's kind of the gist of where I am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Boy, I love trees. Not as much as people, but I love trees. Kaisi.
What's happening?
I'm doing good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. So you're a musician, so tell us a little bit about your politics too.
Yeah, I'm an award-winning music artist and producer, but I'm also a heavy activist doing, exposing a lot of things through my music, but I'm one of the producers of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, where we're trying to get people off the mindset of red or blue, Democrat, Republican, and let it just completely get rid of that and get it back to more of the basic how the Constitution was, which never had that in it. So whoever has the best ideas for the nation and for humanity in the planet as a whole, those are the people that we should be looking at. Scientific ideas where they can make abundance for everyone based on, you know, maybe transforming things to geothermal or magnetic energy, tidal energies, all these different types of clean energies that we can start redesigning the infrastructure of our planet, maybe first with our nation to set an example, but the whole goal is obviously the planet. So too many left and right, different sides. They're not really focusing on this really important issue. They're still all wrapped up in the corporatocracy and the banks and the oil industry, and everything still kind of feeds them. The pharmacy industry, everything feeds them. So they all steer clear of this free energy type of model. And I'm part of, if you guys have seen the Zeitgeist films by Peter Joseph, I'm part of the Zeitgeist media team as well. I perform at all of his events every year, and I'm a big part of that in the Venus Project, where we can use technology now. It's at such a level where it can set all of us free on this entire planet to where we all are living in abundance with basic things like food, water, shelter taken care of. When you know, it comes to 3D printing houses within 24 hours, which is easily done now. And all these different energy types of systems that we can put into play. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing. I performed and produced the third-party presidential debates this last presidential
2016.
race. Yep.
Yeah.
It was at Colorado University.
That was moderated by Christina Tobin.
Yep.
And,
Christina
Ed
Tobin is
yeah.
the founder of the Free and Equal Elections. And she took me on years ago as a partner to help with the live aspect of it all, with the artists and the stage and all that stuff. And
I think I was there in 2012 with Immortal Technique, and Wu-Tang was there, Sean Stone.
Yeah, it was great times.
Lee Camp.
Great times.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh yeah. She's great. So yeah, we're just trying to do whatever we can, little by little, you know.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. George.
Hello all, I'm happy to be here with everybody. George Kallas. I teach political science at Miramar College. And Dan and I have a long relationship with Democracy at Work, where we've worked together, partnered together in promoting democratic workplaces. And one of them we're working on together called Arete Media Productions, which is helping to help produce the Nowman show also. So, and I'm happy to be here with everybody, and we're going to have some very interesting discussions about serious, mature politics. And I'm happy to be here with all of you.
That's right. Thank you very much.
What, no mudslinging?
Yeah, no mudslinging.
That's right.
No slingshots with balls of clay. I had to say that. But we are symbolically going to be doing that, I guess, right? Because we're proactive people. And George and I, as part of Democracy at Work, of course, for those of you who may not know, that's an advocacy group for co-created, I should say, by the economist and professor Richard Wolff to advocate for the creation of worker cooperatives. And what that is one person, one vote in a democratic type of structure. And we're going to get into that as to how and why that's a part of going forward using the UK Labour Party manifesto as a model. And we will get into that during the course of this discussion. But this is really a discussion about what's happening now, and as you can tell from just what everybody has shared, there's a lot of issues. They're all connected, and I would say, in honor of the would be the actually 6th anniversary of Occupy Wall Street, where I first, I guess, really accelerated. I've always been an activist, but that's when my activism really began to accelerate, because I realized there were 1,000 issues plus, and they all are important, and they're all connected, and we have to talk about them all and go back to the source of what connects them all together. And with that in mind, we are in a serious, deep political and economic crisis, and it's global. And everybody knows that. If you turn on mainstream media sources, they're not going to necessarily talk about it. But I'm going to ask all of you here at the table, okay? This is going to be really basic, fundamental. Does everybody have enough to eat? Do you have enough clothes on your back? Do you have a reliable roof over your head?
Some do.
You do? Do you specifically? Do you?
I personally do.
Yeah.
I feel like I do.
Yeah, privileged enough to be able to.
At times, I
okay.
haven't. I had to scrape through garbage cans and dumpsters and scrounge up $1 just go get a $1 sandwich. But I worked really hard, and now I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But there's too many that still have to do that.
I feel like for me, the majority of why I am so stable is because I I have a job that I have a union backing me and my job, and I have tenure. I'm also an instructor at a community college. So our union has, you know, is part of a bigger union, and so on and so on. You know, an association and so on. We're an independent union, but you know, statewide there's still a few professors that have tenure. I mean, in relationship, I would say, I don't know, 25%, 30% have tenure. It's a dying breed.
Yes.
In education and academia. But because of that, I'm able to, I know I'll have a job next semester, I'll have classes and all of that. And then because I don't have to worry about where I'm going to get my job, and I was part-time for 10 years, so I know how it is to scrounge by, and classes get canceled, and then I don't have money, and then I have to, you know, all of that. But
so you were an adjunct?
Yes, I was adjunct, yeah. And because I'm no longer adjunct, and I have that security in my life, I can devote myself to other things and other causes. You know, I have the time and energy, and I don't have to worry about. And I feel like if people had that security, very basic security, and their needs taken care of, they could get more involved politically.
That's right.
You know, who has time to vote? I mean, we have to, like, they might have to research and all that stuff. Too much. Why, you know, why bother? And plus, why bother after the fact?
Yeah.
You know, so they got to get food on their tables. They got to pay for their doctor bills and all that stuff. And those are the things I don't have to worry about, fortunately, and therefore I can get involved politically.
Well, there's an incentive to keep us that way too.
Yes.
Because when people are fighting for their survival, their family's survival, they don't have time to think about oil companies and drug companies and how they're profiting. It's one of the many ways that they turn us against each other, because we're all fighting for a scrap of one slice of pie when they have the rest of the whole pie. And it's, when you're struggling day to day, it's very hard to look past your immediate circumstances and realizing that there's severe systemic issues that created your reality, and they're that way for a reason, because a small group of elites want it to be that way.
Right.
Right.
When you're a rat on the wheel, you don't have time to get off and figure out how to unlock the cage.
That's true. That's a
So they want to keep us all, you know, like cogs in the wheel.
Yeah, she's addressed a very important issue with my students. Believe it or not, I have students that are homeless.
Yeah.
I've had students that had food insecurity, and they're under stress to pay tuition they can hardly afford. They either have part-time jobs or are unemployed and trying to struggle to get through college. So it puts a double burden, or triple burden on them, you know, because we're demanding certain educational, intellectual standards. At the same time, they can't feed themselves, which indicates to me the major conventional institutions are in crisis. We can't even feed our own students.
And what Ryan was saying, you know, the powers that be, they're the ones that take the big chunk of the pie. So a very simple example is with the students, books. We assign textbooks, hundreds of dollars per book.
Yes.
And where does all that money go?
It goes to corporate publishers.
Exactly.
That's right.
Who usually have large corporate investors.
Yeah.
And an agenda in those specific books.
Yes. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is not a humorous question, but I think you'll get the drift of it. What happened? Do you understand the joke? That's the name of Hillary's book. Of course, you know, I've made jokes to people about, well, it pretty much says it all on the cover, except they left out the DNC, but that's pretty much it. But seriously, what happened is, we've seen with the hurricanes, the intensity of, we were talking about that earlier, Kaisi, the intensity of storms increasing, because where we grew up, we experienced tornadoes, and it's just getting worse. You know, the intensity of the storms is getting worse. The frequency of the storms is getting worse. Citizens United, that's what's happened.
Well, you could also take Hillary's title as a rhetorical question that is open-ended, that addresses all of our major conventional institutions that are in crisis.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Our political institutions, our electoral institutions, our economic institutions, our social institutions.
What isn't in crisis
What
right now.
isn't in crisis. it's all happening now before her eyes, and she asks this question.
Right, I know.
We're finally at a point where we can, it's easy for us as humans to be able to expose corruption now within people's teams and all these things like that. And once so much corruption gets exposed, even if media tries to cover it up and play it off, people know. You know, they read it, they hear it, they see it, and they're like, well, that's that. You know, and they can try to cover it up all they want, but once it's out, it's out. And
That's right.
a lot of people are just tired of it now. You know, a lot of people are tired of politics in general. And I feel that politics is an outdated means of control. And based on using sciences now that we have achieved, we can let science set everything up to where everybody's eating, everybody has roofs over their heads. Look at all the money that was spent on all these fake wars over fake weapons of mass destruction. And that was what really woke me up when I saw 9/11 happen, and I watched it, and I was watching in my classroom at school, and I saw the other, I was like looking at another plane, I was like, oh, look guys, looks like that plane's gonna hit it too. Just joking, and then it did. I'm like, wow. When I saw that, and as it started to unfold, and they went over there with all these WMD claims and all this stuff, and then it ended up not being real, I was like, wow. That's some corrupt government stuff right there. And that was really what woke me up to our own system not representing the people's best interests and representing the corporatocracy. So yeah, we gotta stop spending all that trillions of dollars on war for no reason, causing division and death. And if we put that money into rebuilding the infrastructure of our nation, let alone the world afterwards, but first our nation, we would have enough to pay for everybody's schooling, everybody's hospitals, and we'd be able to redesign the infrastructure with clean energy systems everywhere. We can install turbines just on the East Coast. And I went to college for computer electronic energy engineering just for fun, and we can install turbines, tidal turbines, along the East Coast, minimal manpower to keep them operating, and it would bring in enough tidal energy, perpetual motion, to power the majority of America. It would go all the way up to the Mississippi, which is technically the majority of the population on that side. And that's just one form. That's just one form. It would be about $10 billion to make this happen. That's it, $10 billion. We spend trillions on war, but yet we could literally redesign everything and make everybody safe and healthy. But no, the corporate powers won't let this happen.
Medicare for All. Ryan, Bernie has a new bill, and there's the SB 562 here in California. Tell us a little bit about that and what you think is good about it, and maybe critique it too.
All right, so do you want me to start with 562 or the federal bill? Or what would you rather
well, actually,
focus on?
what's the most relevant? Let's do that.
The most relevant right now, just because 562 is now officially a 2-year bill, because yesterday was the last day they could release it. I can explain more of that later.
Oh,
but
really?
I think
Wow.
the federal bill right now is a little bit more pressing because it's part of that culture shift we were talking about. If you're talking about logistics of the bill, it's a fantastic bill. It has a ton of different funding options on the side, which is one of the main complaints people have. The bill is the most feminist bill, healthcare bill, I believe, ever put into Congress, because not only is the entire program exempt from the Hyde Amendment, not only does it guarantee full reproductive coverage, which would probably include transitions for transgender people, abortion, all of that, but it also ends the war on clinics. Because the bill forbids states from raising standards on providers if it lowers access to care. And since they do things like hospital admitting privileges and all these other horrible gimmicks to shut clinics down, that would end. So states like Kentucky wouldn't be able to drive people away from abortion clinics anymore. The bill overall has a few flaws, of course. It's missing a few cost control measures. The funding hasn't been added to it yet. But it's a very detailed, comprehensive bill that would definitely be the kind of thing I would want to see proposed if it had a chance of passing, which unfortunately it doesn't. But that's the whole. But the whole point is, public opinion is shifting rapidly on single payer, which is why Bernie has introduced it. We're talking about what we can do now. The Medicare for All bill Bernie just proposed. And by the way, you have people from Bernie Sanders to Elizabeth Warren to Kamala Harris to even Max Baucus, who railed against single payer, went during the ACA negotiations, all of them are saying it's necessary. The Overton window is shifting, and that's Bernie's contribution by submitting this bill.
May I ask, why do you think these politicians are shifting now?
Yeah, good question.
Eventually, money can't compensate for the fact that people are able to see what's right in front of them. And people right in front of them are seeing the complete abysmal failure of the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
It's based on the German system, but it has nothing good from the German system.
That's right.
The companies aren't not for profit, the mandate's weak. It's just an entirely incomplete system, and people can see that. It's their wallets, it's their livelihoods, it's the fact that they have high deductibles. So if that's not dealt with, and the sad truth is they know the Affordable Care Act can't be improved, otherwise they double down on that. So people are realizing if you want to get elected, you have to eventually show people that at least you're hearing them. So healthcare is something that people see directly.
I think I take a more pessimistic view of those politicians, and you said it. You have to show that you're hearing them, but I think they just want to jump on board because they don't want to be left out.
Do you think this is a cynical ploy because of the crisis of the Demo-Republican Party rule that we've been experiencing?
Duopoly.
The duopoly, the crisis of the duopoly.
I think it's a cynical
has
ploy
nothing
for
to
a
do
lot
really
of
of
them.
any moral consideration.
Absolutely
This is
not,
good
but
for
frankly I
people.
don't care because these people are in it for them, and if what
Right.
it takes for them to do the right thing is to be worried about losing their cushy job as a senator,
Right.
then I will take it. Just like a lot of libertarians want universal basic income, not because they care about other people, but because it would mean instead of a million different public assistance
Right.
programs, you have one big program, that's less bureaucracy. I don't really care why they're on board, as long as they're doing a genuine effort. For example, Kamala Harris, most people realize that she's not a firebrand progressive, but when she stood up there in front of Bernie Sanders and spoke about the bill, it was clear she'd done her research on it.
Right.
She talked about the economic impacts of it and how it liberates people and how it's and a bunch of other things that wouldn't happen if you were just talking about it from a casual, I didn't actually look into this kind of way.
How come they didn't how come they haven't been pushing for that before?
Because
Why
the public
all of a
didn't force
sudden?
them to.
Well, don't you think it's re-election? It's politics.
Yep.
That's what they, whether they, I mean, look at what happened during the, I don't want to go into this a long time, but look what happened during, the 2016 election, when they were putting together the Democratic platform. And what Bernie had, like, 3 people, and then Debbie Wasserman Schultz could pick 3 people, and Hillary got to pick 4 for the committee. All of those progressive issues that were discussed, supposedly initially, 80% of it was, initially accepted. They were saying, well, Bernie Sanders got 80% of what he initially wanted to put in there, but in the final outcome, you know how many of those progressive issues got passed by the committee? 0. So is that the politics we're looking at right now? It's
I
like
think
it's
there's
all
a shift.
hot
There
air.
is a shift.
What's the shift?
Things are
What's the
different
shift?
now. Things are different now, but
Well, at the end of the day, the Overton window is driven by what the people consider acceptable. The media has a massive sway in it, but ultimately the media feeds off what the people want, not the other way around. The reason they're able to get away with saying nonsense is because the people will accept it. But the moment people demand better, that's when they start doing better. It's the same thing with healthcare. The people are starting to demand a single-payer system. The education's a big part of it. They realize the current system isn't working. And the Overton window is shifting because Bernie's movement, a lot of the longtime activists who were there before Bernie's movement, they're now demanding it, and it's becoming politically toxic to not get on board. Even Joe Manchin is saying it should be looked at. So there is a paradigm shift going on, and I'm not someone who cares, again, so much why they're doing it, as long as they're actually doing it. Because now that, for example, Kamala Harris has gotten on board, the next time it comes up in front of a Democratic Senate, that makes it so much more toxic for her to say no, since she's given such a strong endorsement this time. So even though it can't pass now, this is a big deal that we've gotten so many people.
I see. I think I understand what you're saying. Is it because once you say something and then you don't do it, that's political suicide. So maybe.
Could we say we're at a historical moment now where this is putting in the proverbial wedge in the door from an amendment, for the 28th Amendment to have universal health care as a right, and then putting in the next amendment for universal basic income,
right,
and then the next amendment for a right to a job.
Thanks very much. We can obviously go on and on and on. As a matter of fact, next time let's continue this discussion. I do want to end it on worker cooperatives.
Yes.
And when next time we have a panel discussion, let's go into more details about that. Also the UK Labour Party's manifesto, which I just want to say a big part of that, and it's again a political manifesto, which is economic, because they see that as transformational for the country in its politics as well as its economy. It's based on a 3-point idea. It's called democratizing the economy, okay? Alternative models of ownership.
Put that into an economic bill of rights.
That's right, and one is worker cooperatives, one worker, one owner, one vote, like Arete Media Productions is. And Mondragon in Spain, Emilia-Romagna region has lots and lots of worker cooperatives. In Italy, we'll also be talking more about that as time goes on. By the way, we have part 2 of our series and part 3 of our series on worker cooperatives on the Nowman show. The second part is municipal and locally led ownership, community shops, development trusts, farmers markets.
Yes.
This is in the UK. This is what's being proposed. The third point of democratizing the economy is national ownership, getting the post office and the rail and energy back into national ownership, and that's collaborations with the people, because it's your tax money going into that, and basically the whole idea is a transformation of the whole social organism with democratic control.
So Dan, what is the bottom line? Taking capital away from the capitalists.
That's right, and focusing on community. So the next time around, we're going to talk also about the core meanings of words like community, like social, okay?
Yes.
And feuding capital, as I like to say. That's why we don't have feudalism, and maybe in the not too distant future we won't have the other one either to dominate our lives. So that being said, we don't have enough time to go around the table for closing thoughts this time around, but thank you so much, Ryan. Pronounce your last name for me.
Skolnick.
Skolnick.
Just pronounced just how it looks.
And
Melissa Michelson.
Kaisi,
way.
Berick.
and
George Kallas.
and you are watching the Nowman show. This is Niswander. Thank you so much for watching. Those of you watching on YouTube, hope you enjoyed this. We're going to continue the discussion, but for now, always remember, be present now.
The past is gone, the future is yet to come, it's now, right now. The present is here, the future is near, but it's right now. You know, being with you makes the party complete, so keep the body moving, ensures you're happy.